Coming up in this episode of In Clear Focus.
The biggest gap is just that knowledge gap. Unless you're working in it day in and day out, things change constantly. One day Amazon will like an ingredient in something, and then the next day they'll say this vitamin is banned, and you've got to go get your listing reinstated.
You're listening to In Clear Focus, fresh perspectives on marketing and advertising, produced weekly by Big Eye, a strategy-led full-service creative agency growing brands for clients globally. Hello, I'm your host, Adrian Tennant, Chief Strategy Officer. Thank you for joining us. With over 200 million Prime members worldwide and billions of monthly visitors, Amazon represents an enormous opportunity for consumer brands. Amazon.com reflects an increasingly sophisticated marketplace with an array of advertising tools and a media network capable of reaching audiences across its ecosystem, which today includes Prime Video's streaming channels for sports, TV shows, and movies. For brands, successfully navigating Amazon's expanding universe while maintaining profitability and protecting brand equity has become more complex. Our guest today is an expert in helping brands maximize their success. Carolyn Lowe is the founder and CEO of ROI Swift, an agency that excels in growing small and medium-sized businesses on Amazon's marketplace. After managing a $2 billion division of Dell and running global marketing for several major brands, Carolyn founded ROI Swift in 2015 to help emerging consumer brands achieve profitable growth. Carolyn is also the author of the book, Business Do's and Absolute Don'ts, Applied Wisdom from my work with Dell, Costco, Amazon, and multiple startups. To discuss strategies for succeeding on Amazon, I'm delighted that Carolyn is joining us today from Austin, Texas. Carolyn, welcome to In Clear Focus.
Thank you for having me.
You founded ROI Swift after holding senior positions at Dell. What inspired you to focus specifically on helping brands succeed on Amazon?
It's interesting. It goes back to 1999. I was working at Dell and running a $2 billion division, and, it just wasn't fun anymore. I was working with some really great brands. I was working with Costco, and I was on air on QVC and selling computers, $1 million worth of laptops in 8 minutes. And this was the early days of Amazon. They had one building up on the hill and they wanted to sell Dell computers. And I couldn't find a way around the channel conflict, versus Dell.com. But fast forward 6 years, I had 2 kids, and then I went to a mom and baby company, and I was their entire marketing department. They're a $3 million company. In a year, I 5X'd them. I ran their Facebook, moved them over to Shopify, Google. This is 2014. And they had a fledgling Amazon business doing $10,000 a month. And so I grew that to $600,000 a month and said, I really want to do this for 999 more companies. So I left my job as the head of e-commerce in Amazon for this single mom and baby company. And then I brought them with me and then started ROI Swift so we could help that many more brands.
Excellent. When evaluating whether a brand should sell on Amazon, what are the key factors you recommend your clients consider?
That's a great question, Adrian. It really comes down to economics. And what I have found and what most folks have found is that there's some people selling on Amazon unprofitably. There was a natural cleaning company, and we went in and we worked with them, and they were doing $30,000 a month. And I looked at all their SKUs and I pulled their SKU economic report and I said, you're actually losing money on every single one of these that goes out the door. So stop selling these and you will actually make more money. And I think a lot of people jump in and they don't go down to the SKU level economics to really see, hey, these are the products that I could do, or these are the products that I have to make a bigger size or a 2-pack or something to make it profitable given Amazon's fee structure.
You've mentioned that many brands doing significant revenue on Amazon aren't always profitable. Carolyn, what are the most common reasons for this?
The most common reasons are just not understanding those individual item level economics, understanding Amazon fees, or maybe spending too much on advertising and not focusing enough on the thing that gets so overlooked, which is your organic optimization. Just like your website, what does your page look like? So say you have a Shopify website and you're converting at 2%. Back when I was at the mom and baby company, we redid the product page on our website and what the template looked like. And we saw like a 20% increase in conversion. And so all of a sudden you're going from 2% to 2.4%. Everything gets much more profitable at that point. Every dime you spend on traffic or every dollar you invest is doing that much better. It's the same with Amazon. People will spend a lot of money on advertising and they won't go down to those item level economics and say, well, I'm only making, after my COGS, my cost of goods and my fees, I'm only making 50% and I'm spending 25 or 30% on advertising. And so I've got 20%. And then by the time I take out my operating expenses, really, there's not a lot left. So we really focus on that, almost looking at how much should I spend on ads, even on an individual product level, because unless all your products are exactly the same in cost of goods and gross margin, it doesn't make sense to do a one size fits all.
Great advice. Can you walk us through your 7 killer image listing guide and why it's so critical for success on Amazon?
You've done a lot of homework, and not a lot of people know about our 7 killer image listing guide. Again, it goes back to that organic optimization. So 67% of traffic on Amazon is mobile. And on mobile, it'll show you the first 6 images and a video. So you really have 7 quote images. On desktop, it'll show, sometimes it can show up to 10 images, but 2/3 of your folks are already on mobile. So just assume they're only going to see your first 6 images plus your 1 video. This is where it's critical. We see so many brands do this. They make these really gorgeous images, but they actually do nothing to sell your product or convert your product. So we see this a lot. We have a lot of case studies with a beauty brand where it was a makeup item and they just had 5 pictures of the same thing of 5 different people wearing their makeup. Well, you really have to convert people with those images because, as you know, a lot of folks don't read that much anymore. So you really have to show them with pictures. I have 2 teenagers. I can validate that this is true. So what we did is we said, okay, we want one that's more like a testimonial type image, a lifestyle image. We want another one that's a comparison chart, that it's your brand is all checks and their brand is all X's, whether it's clean ingredients or whatever that is. And then the other one, you really want a sort of a benefits slide and then sort of any social proofing. And then almost like a how-to or instructions, or if it's apparel, a size guide. So that 6th image is dependent on the category. And then, of course, you really want a beautiful 30-second video with titles over it because nobody has their sound on by default, just really explaining your product and why, we have brands that are premium that convert higher than some non-premium products just because we do such a good job telling that brand story.
What role does advertising play within Amazon, and how should brands think about their advertising strategy on the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. We look at a lot of things, and it's just like your website, right? We see a lot of people jump in, put a product page up there, and then just start pouring money into the Amazon advertising abyss, I like to call it. So you just sort of pour money into the abyss, and then you say it didn't work. So just like your website, Amazon's the same. There's 2 ways to get more revenue. You can drive more traffic, or you can increase your conversion. We like to do both, right? If you come down to it, you either need more people on your page or more people converting that are coming to your page. Those are really the 2 big levers you have, whether it's Amazon or your website. And so we look at an individual item level, what is the conversion on this page? So if it's below a certain percent, like if it's below 15%, we say, let's go fix the page. Lots of people are coming, but they're not buying. So there's something wrong with the page. If it's above 15 or 20% and it's got low traffic, we say, great, now let's go. We've optimized the page. It's doing really well. We need to get more folks here. Let's invest in more advertising on this. So we really look at it, not just at a blanket level, but at an individual level. And what's the issue here? Is it a traffic issue? Is it a conversion issue? And let's go fix that.
You've helped brands achieve dramatic growth on Amazon. Now, we love case studies on In Clear Focus. So, Carolyn, can you share an example of a success story and the key factors that drove that growth?
Absolutely. We work with a lot of big brands, but we also sort of love the unsexy brands. There's a lot of opportunity. So I was just in Dallas this week at the Patio Pool and Spa Expo, and one of our brand partners was there. And they make outdoor fencing, railings. Their best seller is outdoor fence posts and fence railing. So you can imagine it's not really sexy, and it's really hard to tell on Amazon this fence from that fence. So one thing we did was we redid all their images, we redid all their copy, we redid all their A+ content and really showed the difference. And they have since tripled in about 18 months. They were doing high six figures a month on Amazon, and they have since tripled. So we really started with their top sellers. We redid all their images, we redid all their product pages, we redid all their back-end optimizations, and they spend very little on advertising, single percentage points. So
amazing. And you mentioned A+ content. Could you just explain that to us?
sure, if you're the brand owner, rather than just having a detailed description with just text, you can put images, you can put video, you can talk about your brand, you can cross-sell to some of your other products, which helps a lot. So what they call A+ or enhanced content is available to brand owners, which really helps with your product, especially on mobile.
Excellent. Carolyn, you're also the author of the book, Business Do's and Absolute Don'ts. In it, you discuss lessons learned from working with Fortune 100 companies and startups. What are some of the principles you found to be universally applicable, regardless of company size?
That's always an interesting question. Regardless of size, the profitability, like I said, I came from Dell, and we had a saying, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that sort of level of knowing your P&L, you would not believe how many folks, whether they're CEOs or department heads, just don't have a really good grasp on their P&L. So that's the first thing, universally know your numbers. The second one really has to do with people. I've made a lot of mistakes. And in the book, I talk about a lot of the mistakes that I have made in hiring and being, a little bit slower to hire and a little bit faster to fire. You can't get to where you're going with the wrong people on the bus.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see brands making when they try to manage Amazon on their own?
That's a good question as well. I see a lot of brands that don't know what they don't know. And that was the biggest eye-opener for me when I started working with Amazon 10 years ago, was it's like an onion. You just keep peeling back the layers. Like, some people don't know about B2B. Some people don't know about certification. Some people don't know about posts. So some people don't know about betas or Vine or all these different programs that Amazon offers. People don't know about them, or they don't know how to use them. So a lot of times I think the biggest gap is just that knowledge gap. Unless you're working in it day in and day out, things change constantly. One day Amazon will like an ingredient in something, and then the next day they'll say this vitamin is banned, and you've got to go get your listing reinstated. So I think running it on your own, you also just don't have that access to all the other data. So there's a big rowing brand that came to us, and they manage it in-house, but I know they're a private equity firm that owns them. And so the private equity partner came to me and said, hey, can you give me some data about what happened on big deal days, the big Prime days? And so I gave them some data across a bunch of different brands. And that's the one thing, you're sort of operating in a vacuum if you're doing it yourself. You don't have the luxury of knowing, like, is this normal? Is this not normal?
Can see that. How do you help brands protect themselves from competition from Amazon's own private label products?
That is difficult. Amazon does go after a lot of commodity categories. If you're Duracell and you're making batteries, I'm sorry, you are going to lose some share to Amazon Basics. A lot of the brands we work with, though, they're either like B Corp and they're mom and baby companies, or they're sports and outdoors, or they're sort of big and heavy. And Amazon doesn't love that model, right? Everything pretty much gets shipped. So, I feel like it's hard if you're in a commodity category. If you're in toilet paper or batteries, or electronics, Amazon can just slap Amazon Basics on it. And that's where you really sort of have to differentiate yourself. I know it's hard in batteries, but take, for example, the brand Anker, Anker. They've done an amazing job because the Apple cords would always fray and break. And so they started with making a better cord for your iPhone. And then they made even better power chargers. And so I think they've really done a great job solving customer problems and just taking a commodity product and making it better.
Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this message. In partnership with our friends at Kogan Page, this month's Big I Book Club selection is Marketing for Social Change: How to Turn Purpose into Business and Social Impact. The book's author, Kian Bakhtiari, presents a practical guide for brands looking to create meaningful social impact while building authentic purpose into their business strategy. Marketing for Social Change shows how brands can move beyond performative purpose to create lasting positive change. Through compelling real-world case studies, the book demonstrates how creativity and action can drive both social impact and business success. As an InClear Focus listener, you can save 25% on Marketing for Social Change when you order directly from the publisher at koganpage.com. Just enter the exclusive promo code BIGI25 at checkout. Shipping is always complimentary for customers in the US and the UK. So let Marketing for Social Change be your roadmap to building a purpose-driven brand that makes a real difference. Welcome back. I'm talking with Carolyn Lowe, founder and CEO of ROI Swift and the author of Business Do's and Absolute Don'ts. What metrics should brand managers watch most closely to gauge their Amazon performance?
Amazon has their own metrics, and then we have a plugin and a software that we use, which is much more user-friendly than Amazon's platform. We look at things like weekly traffic, weekly conversion rate, are things going up and down? So our software can tell us, we can compare week on week at an individual item level. Those are the kinds of things that we like to look at, right? Not just is revenue up or down, but is it a traffic problem? Is it a conversion problem? Did a new competitor come on? So we really sort of look at a variety of different metrics. We have this deck that we put together for CEOs that says 3 things every exec should know about their Amazon business. It's that item level economics. There's one that takes you to your sales and your traffic and your conversion. And then the other one is just understanding which ones are your moneymakers and which ones are your loss leaders.
Of course, Amazon is constantly innovating, and that's especially true of its solutions for advertisers. Carolyn, what are some newer tools you're either considering or already using with your clients?
If you don't have a lot of budget, I'd say if you're selling less than 6 figures a month on Amazon in revenue, you probably are using most of the tools on Amazon. You're using the sponsored products. So your product comes up first, just like Google, you can buy a Google ads, you show up at the top of the page. And then there's one opportunity at the top called sponsored brands where you can highlight multiple products. That's a great placement. There's video ads. They're called sponsored videos. So in your search results, you'll see one that's a video and it auto plays. Those have been very successful. We built up $1 million individual item, like one SKU or UPC that does $1 million a year, and it's an $11 product, but really built that up through those sponsored video placements. And then once you get more sophisticated, there's custom creative, and then you can start moving off Amazon into their display platform. So their DSP, where you can retarget people off Amazon if they didn't buy on Amazon. But for most of the folks starting out, even doing $1 million a year, the highest ROI is going to be all the things that are on the Amazon platform. They're already shopping. The other ones start to, once you've exhausted all of your profitable on Amazon advertising, then you can move off Amazon.
Yeah, one of the interesting things we've seen is this idea of local Amazon advertising almost replacing the local broadcast affiliates, for example. So using places like Prime Video to run awareness advertising. So it's sort of separate from Amazon.com, but clearly you're staying somewhat within the ecosystem.
Yes. So you can run it on Fire, on Prime Video, on any of the platforms or any platforms outside of Amazon as well.
Just to reinforce the point that Amazon is always innovating and changing, as you know, they recently launched a new service called Haul, which is focusing on low-priced products. I think typically $10, $20, that kind of range. Carolyn, what's your take on Haul?
We've been looking at some of these markets. I mean, you look at how big Shein is. Amazon can't just do little things. You need big things to make a big difference, right? You do things like you buy Whole Foods, you buy a grocery store chain, you for 17 billion, or I forget what the number was. But, I think that there's that apparel market that Shein and others have captured, and Amazon is looking at, and that's one thing that, traditionally has not been quite as strong, is branded apparel. And then also that sort of low cost apparel as well. So in general, I know the woman who used to run Amazon Fashion, and she left and now she's at GoDaddy, running the head of GoDaddy, because it's a really sort of challenging part. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the tariffs that the US might impose on imports, especially China. So I'll be interested to see how those play out once you tack on some tariffs.
Looking ahead, what emerging opportunities or changes do you see coming to Amazon that brands should prepare for?
Yes, I think there's a few things. As you know, they've increased the placement fees. So there's this fine balance of you have to have enough inventory, but not too much inventory. And so they charge you more if you have too much, and then they charge you more if you don't have enough. I think the shipping, and then that's always going to be an issue, the fees. And then the other one I think that's coming too is really a lot of the AI that Amazon has introduced. It's not perfect, but it's way better than, you could do yourself as a business owner. A lot of their AI on their creative is getting better and better. Their advertising platforms are evolving. They've also shortened time for reimbursements. We used to be able to get clients, $80,000 to $100,000 back a year in money that Amazon owes them in fees. And Amazon just shut that down and said, you can only go back 60 days. You can't go back to infinity. So Amazon is getting all of that liability off their books. And so people are rushing before this hits to reclaim all the money that Amazon owes them, because Amazon isn't going to just out of the generosity of their heart write you a check and say, here you go, we're so sorry. We lost 2 cartons of inventory worth $200,000. But unless you do the work and put in cases, they won't give you any of that money back. So they're definitely closing some of those loopholes, and they're looking, based on a survey that I got from them, my guess is they're looking to acquire one of those type services or build it into their platform themselves.
Interesting. When we were preparing for this interview, you mentioned to me that you're seeing some interesting trends with B2B buyers using Amazon. Can you tell us a bit more about the business-to-business opportunity for consumer brands?
Brands you wouldn't think have a B2B play, absolutely have a B2B play. I was out at Seattle headquarters. Amazon invited the top 250 women sellers in the country to headquarters. We met with all of the leadership team, and we had like a 2-day session. And it was interesting. Back then, they were touting they had 400,000 businesses on Amazon Business. Like now, there's tens of millions of businesses, right? A lot of people have replaced their Office Depot or Staples accounts with Amazon Business, right? You can get it in the same amount of time, and it's usually much cheaper, and they have the world's best selection. So from A to Z, there's even a hair care brand we work with. And you think, well, what would B2B buy in hair care? Well, when you have those 32-ounce shampoos, those are perfect for B2B. And then they can start doing quantity discounts. So products you didn't think would use B2B that are strictly consumer, we've seen this in baby. We've seen daycares and other types of businesses buying a lot from traditionally consumer, whether they're silicone bibs or, fork and knife sets. I mean, you name it. And so for folks that have a B2B account, you can also do special pricing. So, hey, you can do a quantity discount. If you buy 10 or more, you get 5% off. And only business customers will see that. And the other thing, too, is that the U.S. government. So traditionally, government has to buy 40% from disadvantaged or traditionally disadvantaged businesses, which include minority-owned and women-owned. And so with all those certifications, like we have a lot of women-owned companies we work with, we're minority-owned, and they get those certifications. And so they show up on your business page and said, hey, this is from a small business, or this is a woman-owned business. And so that also helps them get purchases from folks that have to buy a certain percentage from traditionally disadvantaged businesses.
Some really interesting points there, lots to think about, and a great conversation. Thank you. Carolyn, what's something about you that people might not expect?
I think one thing, if you go to our website or you go to LinkedIn, you know that I'm a private pilot. Since moving to Texas, it's hard to get around the state of Texas. But I think one thing that I've always thought was interesting, or a lot of people don't know, is fairly adventurous. My senior year of college, I had placed out of my finals. I had a lot of business management, business consulting, and those were all project-based. And so while all my friends were taking finals, I jumped on a plane and went to Key West and got a tan before graduation. So I think the sort of crazy, impulsive, adventurous side is probably something not a lot of folks see.
Carolyn, if listeners would like to learn more about you or your work at ROI Swift, what's the best way to do so?
They can visit us on our website and reach out there. It's roiswift.com. You can also just find me, Carolyn Lowe, Lowe, on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. I love to connect with all my, 2 decades ago friends from Dell. They're all off doing some amazing things themselves. So those are the places you can find us, LinkedIn or our website.
Carolyn, thank you very much for being our guest this week on In Clear Focus.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to my guest this week, Carolyn Lowe, founder and CEO of ROI Swift. As always, you'll find a complete transcript of our conversation with timestamps and links to the resources we discussed on the In Clear Focus page at bigiagency.com. Just select Insights from the menu. Thank you for listening to In Clear Focus, produced by Big Eye. I've been your host, Adrian Tennant. Until next week, goodbye.